Welcome back to another episode of my YouTube channel. My name's Michael, and today with me I have a very special guest, someone who I've recorded podcasts with multiple times in the past. He's a big Steelers fan, just like I am, and I had to have him come on for this episode, considering where the Steelers are at right now. Free agency, we're a couple weeks in. We got the draft coming up next month, and we're just in the peak of the NFL offseason right now, and that is my boy Primetime. Welcome on, buddy.
Hey man, I appreciate you for allowing me to come up, come on your podcast.
Of course, man. So why don't you, I do this with everybody. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you became a Steelers fan, and then we'll get into the free agency moves that they made this offseason.
All right, so what's good, everyone? My name is Prime. Well, my nickname is Prime. I usually go by Prime. I've been a Steelers fan since I was young, like 5 or 6 or something like that. It mainly started with me like being a UFC fan. Like I won't say I really became a fan with Reggie Bush, but I also watched him with Troy Polamalu, and then as I saw Troy Polamalu with the rocking Steelers uniform, some of the splash plays he was making, um, I like I just it's he really started to grow on me, and I just really became a fan, particularly off of his game, and just because of that, just watching the team, it became really sensational, and like anytime I felt like the Steelers needed a play, and it's like Troy Polamalu offense or defense, I'm like Troy, and he makes any particular play. I'm like, it was just like a really amazing to watch. But mainly just watching him, it really started like before that playoff run. When they were a 6 seed in 2005, that's when it really started. So like before they even won the Super Bowl, but it was like around that particular time. And also my late grandfather, he was a Steelers fan too. So
There you
yeah,
go.
that's pretty much how the story started.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I know you being a USC fan and, Troy Polamalu being a USC legend and a Steelers legend. I mean, that's a great entry level to becoming a Steelers fan, in all honesty.
Yeah, he's my favorite player ever. It's and also like growing up, I'm like like as I always saw Troy, I'm like he's been a guy to like just play his game like similar to like Larry Fitzgerald. Like you've never seen Larry Fitzgerald like complain or anything like that, no matter how good or how bad the situation was. And that's kind of like the guy Troy Polamalu is, and like and as I started growing up, it's like I started to like particular athletes like that are like humble, that are not like really crazy all about the media, like Russell Wilson, for example. I like Bryce Young. I still have some faith in him. Like he had a little redemption arc the past year and a half or so, leading his team to the playoffs and surprising a lot of people. No matter what the record said, this past season, like these are guys like no matter how good or how bad stuff gets for them, like they don't. It really never gets in their heads. They just go on with the flow. They just try to be a mature, humble beings that they are, and I've grown fond of that. So, and that's been the guy Troy was. He just played relentless on the field, and off the field you don't hear anything about him, and it's just really amazing. It's just really amazing to see, and he's been like a great role model for like a lot of Steelers fans and all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, Troy Polamalu, I really like the fact that you bring up the humble aspect. I mean, that's something that I really respect in a lot of players because in today's age of football, you don't really get that. But, with a legend like Troy Polamalu, he was a guy, like you said, he didn't let his ego be off the media where, he wouldn't take the time, to talk with fans, take photos, come to, charity events out in Pittsburgh. Any event that the Steelers would have, it feels like Troy Polamalu was always there. And obviously I miss his talent on the field. The guy was everywhere, and I mean, I really don't know if I can't name another safety right now who, as soon as like the play started, Troy Polamalu would already be over the line of scrimmage and sack the quarterback.
Yeah, there would never be another Troy Polamalu, and it's like when he retired, when he retired, I felt like it's one of the saddest I felt watching like football. Like just aside from like the Steelers losses, I'm just like it's like damn, that really hit home. It's like and like just from that aspect, even though I knew players on the Steelers roster at the time, it's like that's when it really took into place in my head to start to get to know more particular Steelers players and all that. Like that's around the Killer Bees 2014 and all that. You still had Lawrence Timmons and all that. It's like I started to get the hunch of knowing more players, despite the fact I was a fan. There's different types of fans, and then as you get older, your mind starts to elevate. So that was really mean. That's probably like when it really started when Troy retired. I started to try to elevate my knowledge a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I kind of feel the same way. And that's obviously a great thing to do because, they get you invested with how, consistent the Steelers have been in the past, being one of two franchises right now with six Super Bowls, them being the other team being the New England Patriots. It gets you invested, man, for sure.
For sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, but awesome, man. I love it. So, with that being said, let's get into the Steelers' free agency moves so far of the 2026 offseason because General Manager Omar Khan has been very active with major signings, even a trade to kick off things. But let's get started. So, to kick things off, when free agency first opened up the legal tampering period, we saw a trade between the Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts that sent Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., funny enough, another USC player that I know you're going to be excited to talk about, was traded to the Steelers in a swap of late round draft picks. He'll be paired with DK Metcalf and maybe Aaron Rodgers or whoever is going to be the quarterback for the Steelers next season, likely Aaron Rodgers. But what do you think about the Michael Pittman move, Prime?
All right, so when I saw the move, I was at work. I was at work and stuff like that. Free agency going crazy and all that. I'm just waiting for the Steelers to to hopefully do something. And I saw that. I'm like, hey, this. I don't think it's that bad. It's not really bad. Um, I'm just be like, I will be intrigued to see how Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf would elevate each other. Like Michael Pittman, he's had a solid career. Not like top 10 or anything, but he's had a solid career. He's had a couple injuries like the last few years, I think, and then like he's a really great, really great at contested catches and a good jump ball catcher as well. But it's like you going off last season, like he was kind of shadowed a little bit from Alec Pierce, and of course Daniel Jones had that torn Achilles that really set back the Colts offense. But even then, Alec Pierce was still like more heard of than Michael Pittman like this past season. But it doesn't take away the fact that Michael Pittman is still a good receiver. So like apparently like for like some Steelers fans, you'd be like, who's wide receiver one, who's wide receiver two? Because I don't feel like I feel like I have to see how it all plays out to say that such and such is that guy or that guy or whatever. Because DK Metcalf had like a bit disappointment last season from what I saw and all that. So I feel like both of these guys, I feel like either one of these guys can be wide receiver one. I feel the majority is probably looking at DK Metcalf, but I feel like these
Especially,
guys,
the fact of the big contract that the Steelers gave DK, as soon as they traded for him last year. So it makes you, think that DK is probably still going to be the number one. But, I mean, the production could go either way, in all honesty.
yeah, that's also what I was thinking. So I feel like either one of these guys could be a wide receiver one, wide receiver two. Um, it's really boosted the Steelers wide receiver core from what we saw last season. When
Big time.
you traded George Pickens like a month or two before the season starts, and then you go into the season with Calvin Austin as your wide receiver two, who's mainly a slot guy, wide receiver three with all due respect. Um, but I feel like this is a much better move from what we saw the past season. And like also we had guys like Adam Thielen, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and all that. So I feel like this could be really good for the Steelers. I just hope, since he's wearing number 11, that he can break the number 11 curse for the Steelers the last several years. Because as we've seen, it hasn't turned out well. Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Dante Moncrief. I'm forgetting somebody else. But Chase Claypool, of course, after 2020 and all that. But we're just trying to talk about now and for what the future can turn out for this team and those guys as well. But I really like this move.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with everything you say there. I like Michael Pittman a lot. Very physical and reliable receiver who's at least had 65 catches in each of the past 5 seasons. And again, you said it already, but the Steelers came in the last season with Calvin Austin as wide receiver number 2. And no disrespect to Calvin Austin, he had some really memorable plays with us, including that, game-winning touchdown against the Ravens, even though thanks to Tyler Loop, we actually won that game. But, he still made memorable plays like that I think will, forever be ingrained because, that helped us win the AFC North. But, we just need someone more reliable, someone with more experience, someone, bigger who can win those contested catches. And in all due respect, Calvin Austin just wasn't that guy. And, wide receiver just really has been a big problem for the Steelers the past couple of years. I think it started in the 2024 offseason. You had Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and then you trade Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for, corner Dante Jackson, who wasn't all that bad that year, but very inconsistent. And then Pickens was your, number 1. Didn't go so well. Then you go get DK Metcalf to pair with him. But couple weeks after the draft, I remember, you trade away George Pickens, which, raised a lot of eyebrows because if you were planning to trade Pickens, you could have just drafted your receiver right then and there, but they chose not to, which didn't really make any sense to me. And then, you got a guy like Roman Wilson who has had flashes in the pan, but, he's just been getting shoved down that depth chart, hasn't really had a fair opportunity, in my opinion. Maybe with a guy like Mike McCarthy, whose background is offense, maybe we could see Roman Wilson get that chance. However, I don't think, acquiring Michael Pittman eliminates the opportunity to get a wide receiver in the first round. But, that's a conversation for another time.
Agreed.
Yeah, so Michael Pittman, overall great move. I think whoever's going to be the quarterback for the Steelers, is going to like having DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington, and Jalen Warren in the backfield. I think that's a good supporting cast for sure. So with that being said, let's go to the defense now and talk about a move that the Steelers made on the cornerback position, signing Jamel Dean to a 3-year, $36 million contract, who spent all of his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A move that I like, a move that I think, the Steelers needed to do. They needed to find someone to pair well with Joey Porter Jr., who had an amazing 2025 season. Brian, what do you think of this move?
I feel like this is my favorite move the Steelers have made in free agency so far. Like, because like secondary has been like a major issue like the last several years. Obviously, we saw James Pierre elevate his game last season that nobody expected, and he brought out. But now he signed with the Vikings. But also like fast as the last season, we didn't know what was going on. Like with Ramsey whether Ramsey was like right outside corner or slot, and he got beat on some big plays, and we obviously saw Darius Slay, in which I said it was gonna be like another Pat Pete 2.0 situation, and that exactly what it was, and he got released midway through the season.
Yeah, it felt like that guy could. It felt like every time the Steelers, defense came on the field, Darius Slay just got hurt every drive. It never felt like he was healthy for a full game.
Yeah, that's the sad part. Like, and he just recently retired. No, best of luck for his career and all that. But it's like watching him play last season. It's like It's like it was time to hang him up, But back to Jamel Dean. Obviously, solid corner that the Bucks, good corner the Bucks have had the last several years, and then some stats last season. I think he was like first in passer rating. Like I think he was like top three, top five for sure.
Yeah,
And
you're right. Top three.
it said that he's only allowed like one touchdown in the last 2 years. Like that is remarkable. That's remarkable stuff to hear about. I say the only downside, like he's kind of up there in eight. And I want to say like, he's not in his 30s yet. He's probably like 28,
He's
29.
29.
Yeah, somewhere there, around that range and all that. But this is very much a position that probably needs one of the biggest positions we needed to fill the most. Um, Especially like him paired up with JPJ, and obviously we know how good JPJ is. Maybe hoping for an extension in the off season or next season, whatever the case may be. But Joey Porter Jr. and Jamel Dean on the side of the field, that seems really really great, and this is a move the Steelers really needed to make.
I agree 100%. Jamel Dean in 14 starts last season had 3 interceptions, one of which was a pick six against the Jets in week 3. I think it was like a 55-yarder pick six. And then, for further solidifying the cornerback position, they brought back Asante Samuel Jr., who they signed midseason, who was pretty decent, had a nice interception against the Dolphins on Monday night. So just adding more depth to that cornerback room, which was much needed, like Prime said. And one thing I do want to add, which is kind of interesting about his contract, since you bring up his age, there actually is a clause now to where, let's say, if Jamel Dean has a disappointing, year with the Steelers can actually opt out of the first year after his contract and save themselves some cap room, and they can move on if, age becomes a factor after, this upcoming season, if that were to be the case.
That's interesting. I did not hear about that until now.
Yeah, no, I heard about that through Nick Farabaugh, one of my favorite Steelers insiders. Highly recommend giving him a follow. Gives very great insight on a lot of things. But I was reading that through on Twitter, which he put out there, and I like that even more. And I think that's just good negotiating by Omar Khan.
Agreed.
So yeah, I really like that move. I think like Prime said, the Steelers secondary has been such a problem the last couple of years. I think not having the right guys there. Terrell Austin obviously being the defensive coordinator doesn't help either. But it really seems like that's changing a bit. With the play of Joey Porter Jr., who was amazing last year. I think Jamel Dean is going to pair really well with him. And staying on the secondary, the Steelers also made another move, a one that I actually really like. Kind of surprised at the contract he got. But they brought back Joey Porter's old college teammate and Jaquan Brisker on a 1-year, $5.5 million deal, drafted in 2022 out of Penn State with the Bears. Prime, this is a good move, isn't it?
Yeah, I felt this was my second favorite move. I was also surprised that he got a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
Very
that's
much
why I was
saw.
shocked too. I thought maybe not to cut you off, but I think maybe it would have been like a multi-year contract based off the season he had with the Bears.
Yeah, I was probably thinking like two, maybe three, probably like two at the most. But yeah, he's a very solid safety for the Bears. Had a really good season last year. And he's paired up once again with his college teammate Joey Porter Jr. Um, and like the way the secondary looks, I'll say it's close to complete. We can't really say what will happen. Obviously, we got new staff, new coordinator, new everything. But like if you're looking at the roster and the depth, you got Joey Porter Jr., Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker. You still have Jalen Ramsey, which I know a lot of people are still like questioning what's going to happen with Jalen Ramsey. I feel like he's going to stay. We just don't know if he's going to be like in the slot, if he's going to be a nickel, just going to move around or whatever. And then you re-sign Asante Samuel, and like there's still like a lot. There's still a couple moves that we can make. Like this Kyle Duggar, this Jabril Peppers. We don't know if they're going to stay in the roster or not. We still have Brandon Eccles. And who knows? They could maybe draft somebody in the later rounds. I don't see it going in the first 2 rounds. But if we're looking at roster wise and depth wise, I feel like the secondary is better than majority of ones in the league. But obviously, we gotta see for what their play will take us on the field and all that. But I really do like this move. It helps the secondary a lot more for the last several years because everybody's been hyping up. No, I don't say everybody, but some Steelers fans like hyping up a secondary. And then you got DK Metcalf saying last season this is the scariest defense he's seen. I'm like, nah, I don't know about all that, man. But
Yeah, no, I mean, there was definitely a lot of games last year that the Steelers defense, they were the reason why the Steelers lost those games. Like the first one I can think of is that Thursday night against the Bengals. I mean, Joe Flacco was, carving them up. So, I get the hype that they had last year, but, they need to calm down a little bit because there have been times where this team has disappointed royally. Me and Prime can be the first to tell you that, and think you got to set your expectations at a reasonable level, considering there's just it's a whole new coaching staff. I mean, new defensive coordinator. You got guys with the titles of defensive passing game coordinator now. Same goes for the offense. Just a coaching that staff that the Steelers have never really seen before. So, like Prime said, which I'm glad he brought up, we don't really know what's going to happen.
yep.
But I like this move a lot. Jamel Dean and Jaquan Brisker, especially the fact that Jaquan Brisker and Joey Porter Jr. already have that chemistry from their Penn State days. So I'm really excited to see them play together. And who knows? Maybe if Jaquan Brisker has a good season and takes that 1 year contract, personally on a level where he thought maybe he should have gotten a multi-year deal. Maybe the year after this year, if all things go well, maybe they're talking about a long-term extension or something like that.
Yeah, that's what everybody's hoping for. Obviously, the main goal is Super Bowl, but if we see players perform for what they're capable of, or do more than what they're told to do, that's always something you want to see.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So, see what happens. But going back to the offensive side of things, where the Steelers made another move, this is actually my favorite move of the offseason because I've really liked this guy a lot now for a little bit. And that is Rico Dowdle, who the Steelers signed to a 2 year, $12 million deal. Rico Dowdle at 27 years old, coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, first with the Cowboys back in 2024 when Mike McCarthy was the coach there. So you can already guess why the Steelers signed him. And then last year being with the Carolina Panthers, putting up an 1,000-yard season, having couple great games where he was rushing close to 200 yards against the Cowboys, against the Dolphins. I mean, he was a really good piece on that Panthers offense last year. But I really liked Rico Dowdle a lot. I was pounding the table for the Steelers to get him. The Steelers obviously lost Kenneth Gainwell, who signed with Tampa Bay. I think if you told Steeler fans before the start of last season that Kenneth Gainwell, that he was going to be our team MVP, I think we would have laughed in your face. But he ended up being second on the team in catches. Or did he leave the team? Did he lead the team? Do you know, Prime?
I think he did lead the team, considering the fact that DK was suspended the last two games. I think he did.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. Which again, I mean, if you told Steeler fans that, I think they would have, questioned you and been what? But that was the case. Kenneth Gainwell turned out to be a major contributor on offense. He was great in the receiving game, but one thing that is that differentiates Gainwell from Rico Dowdle is more of a physical guy. More of a pure physical runner, which I think is going to pair really well with Jalen Warren. I'm excited to see those guys together. And I found it pretty cool that Jalen Warren, when he reached out to Rico Dowdle midseason, complimenting his game and them kind of having a friendly conversation there, considering both of them are undrafted. So I'm very excited for Rico Dowdle. He's already got familiarity with Mike McCarthy's scheme. So what do you think about this move, Prime?
Yeah, you pretty much touched up on all the points. Mike McCarthy being his former head coach in Dallas, and obviously him having back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and you touched up on the good performances he's had. I know a lot of Cowboys or Panthers fans that have seen Rico Dotto say like he has a stretch of bad games, but that could be anybody, anybody can have their stretch of bad games, but I'll say for a guy that's undrafted, this is pretty good stuff, and for getting him for a 2 year deal, like under 13 mil, I think under 14, was it 12 mil?
Yeah, it was 12 mil.
Yeah, so for him getting 2 years, 12 mil, that's a steal that's a steal for him. And then obviously losing Kenneth Gainwell kind of like, like we was a little bittersweet. I kind of I like Kenneth Gainwell, but at the same time I feel like for the style of play, I think Rico is better for this offense because Jalen Warren, he can run the ball, he can also pass catch, but he's mainly better as a pass catcher. And Rico Dotto, also as you said, heavy runner. So that can very much they can very much complement each other. If you need like a second, like a second and one, third and one, I feel like either one of those guys can be that guy. But knowing Dotto is like a more heavier runner, I would prefer that. And if you just like, I don't know how Mike McCarthy is gonna. I don't know how Mike McCarthy is gonna do things and all that. But since he's an offensive minded head coach, very much curious to see how this is gonna work. But once again, in terms of just looking at the running back duos, from this standpoint, I like it better from last season. Like going into last season, obviously Kenneth Gainwell did more than he was expected to do. But for this style of play, like I said, I like this move better, and we just got to see how this offense is gonna work. Obviously, we have no quarterback at the moment, but I like the moves that Mike McCarthy has been making. I like this move a lot, and we just got to see what's gonna happen on draft night and before the season starts.
Yeah, exactly. I think the first round, depending on what the Steelers do and who they take, I think is going to tell a lot about what they want to do offensively, considering, it's going to be a whole new scheme, just a brand new everything, like I said, whole new coaching staff. And, some other moves that the Steelers made in free agency, kind of more as, depth pieces. You got Sebastian Joseph Day on a 2 year, $11 million deal, to bolster that defensive line. A move I really like. The Steelers tend to have injuries there, and with a guy like Cam Hayward, getting up there in age, but still seems to, play at a high level every year, but you just never know nowadays. So adding a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day, I think, was smart. And I think it's going to help guys like Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon, not put too much pressure on them. And then on the offensive line, staying in the trenches, you get Brock Hoffman, a rotational guy on that offensive line for Dallas for a couple years, has familiarity with Mike McCarthy and their running backs, and the new Steelers running backs coach, Raymond Chinyoung. So I like that between Spencer Anderson and Brock Hoffman battling for that left guard spot, even though I'm okay with Spencer Anderson being as a starter. I think he's pretty good in the run game when he's been on the field. And then, more in the secondary, getting Darnell Savage on a 1 year deal, even though Darnell Savage has kind of been a little bit of lackluster the past couple of seasons. He's played both free safety and strong safety, and that versatility will be very valuable to have, considering you can already do so much with Jalen Ramsey, and Deshaun Elliott will be back next season. And for the special teams, getting running back Travis Homer, not only adding more running back depth on the offense, but also getting, some special teams help as well. Danny Smith, not the special teams coordinator anymore, so who knows what the Steelers, special teams, how that's going to be, how that's going to operate, but having Ben Skoranek still helps, and having another guy who's a proven, special teams guy and Travis Homer helps. And then staying on special teams, bringing back Cam Johnston, who, they cut last year, but, he literally was slated to be the team starter in 2024 before suffering a season-ending leg injury in week 1. But now he's back after, only playing three games for the Bills last year. So out of those moves, Prime, what do you think about them? Do you think Cam Johnson is reliable as a punter? And what do you think about the other depth pieces that the Steelers made?
So start off like start off with the other depth pieces like Darnell Savage, that said something. Darnell Savage, Sebastian Joseph Day, Travis Homer. Travis Homer for special teams, you know, these are all really solid moves. I think Sebastian Joseph Day is like the best. I think it's the best signing out of all of those. As for Cameron Johnston, yeah, I say it wasn't fair that he didn't really get a shot since he got hurt since he got hurt in that game against the Falcons week 1. But just curious to see how this is gonna work out. Obviously, that Carlos Waitman, he wasn't great. He wasn't great. No, was he like too bad? He wasn't like Percy Harvin level, obviously. But
Oh boy,
um,
bad memories there.
but yeah, just curious to see how this is gonna go. Giving him another shot. As you say, he played 3 games for the Bills last season, but we don't know what to expect. Hopefully it's great. Hopefully it's great from the aspect of looking at it, because I feel like there's other punters on the market that we could have gotten, but at the same time, like before he got hurt, I was like, hey, like he was one of the best punters before he got hurt and all that. So it's like, hey, we're gonna give him another shot. Let's see what he can do. I'm not mad at it at all.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's only a 1 year deal, so if that doesn't work. Maybe talk about looking at the 2027 draft class. Maybe see if there's a punter you like there, or look at the market. So we'll see what happens there. Um, you know, there really wasn't just it was such a small sample size when he was with us, so I couldn't really give you a definitive answer as to how Cam Johnston was with the Steelers. But like you said, we're just gonna see what happens. No more special teams captain at the time, Miles Killebrew. He joined Danny Smith down in Tampa.
Damn.
But Travis Homer. One thing I like about him is that he could also be an option at kick returner. Which the Steelers are going to need after losing both punt returner Calvin Austin, like we mentioned earlier, who signed with the Giants, and Kenneth Gainwell, who was a kick returner for the Steelers last year, as he signed with Tampa Bay. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that kind of were the moves that the Steelers made during free agency. So out of all the moves, Prime, what grade would you give the Steelers?
Um, I'll say an A minus. I feel like
Oh,
they
okay.
I feel like they touched up on a variety of positions that they needed to fill. We saw Kenneth Gainwell left to the Buccaneers. Boom, Rico Dowdle signs with the Steelers. We saw James Pierre go to the Vikings and all that. Still had questions in the secondary, and plus Deshaun Elliott coming back from injury. Boom, we got probably the best corner on the free agency market. Um, you need a depth for the D line. Boom, Sebastian Joseph Day. And then obviously we lost Calvin Austin. Had basically nothing to work with in the wide receiver room last season. Boom, we get a good solid wide receiver in Michael Pittman. Um, so we touched up on a lot of the moves and a lot of questions that probably would have had stipulations about entering the draft. Like, hey, are we going wide receiver first? We technically still can, but it's like you dressed up on a bunch of things. It's like questions like it's like say there's a running back prospect in the later rounds. Like, are we gonna get a running back in the later round? Are we gonna get a wide receiver in the later round, which we still can? Are we going to get a corner? They touched up on a lot of moves that very much had question marks on them. Obviously we still don't have a quarterback, but in terms of, like, the other moves, it's like very much great. So that's what
Yeah,
I love to see.
yeah, no, and I was actually going to give them an A minus too. So funny that you give them that grade, because that's actually mine as well. I think obviously when you look at the Steelers roster right now, you see a lot of strengths, and obviously the big weakness that everyone's gonna talk to you about is the quarterback room. What's gonna happen there? Not only this season but for the future. And I'll continue to mention it. I think I'd give it like an 80% chance that Aaron Rodgers returns because, just on the fact that Mike McCarthy is our new head coach and, who was the coach that Aaron Rodgers started his career out with and who he won a Super Bowl with? That was Mike McCarthy. And not to mention, they didn't just bring back, Mike McCarthy. They brought back a bunch of old positional coaches from their time in Green Bay, like, James Campen from, who was the offensive line coach for Carolina. He's the new Steelers offensive line coach, and, him and Rodgers already have a relationship there. So I just feel like the Steelers, they didn't bring all these coaches back from Green Bay just to not run it back with Aaron Rodgers. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I feel like it's just going to be kind of what it was last year. Don't know if it'll take as long, but I think it's going to come down to, when is Rodgers going to make that decision? Does he still want to play or not? I think, he'll eventually, make up his own mind. I think, when it comes to mandatory minicamp, I couldn't tell you the date right off the top of my head, but right around then, I think the Steelers will have an answer at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. And also another thing I might add, like from what the signings they did and the pieces they lost, they didn't. It's like they didn't lose like too many guys who'd be like, damn. There's a couple guys like James Pierre the season he had last season, Kenneth Gainwell the season he had last season as well. Miles Killebrew, who was a good special teamer for the last several years for the Steelers, and then obviously it's like bittersweet with Calvin Austin. I don't think he would be like too missed, but at the same time he had like a couple of moments. Obviously, that catch he had on Chidobe Awuzie and in the final game of the season, and it's not too much to be like damn, I'm gonna miss him. I feel like Kenneth Gainwell was probably the most memorable out of the four, and for the contracts we signed him to, good contracts, 2-year deal for Rico Dotto, 1-year deal for Jaquan Brisker. We got to trade for Michael Pittman for I say a solid amount of money. It's not no DK Metcalf contract level and all that. And with all the moves that they made, I think the Steelers are still like top 12 in cap space. So that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, no, and who's to say that, Omar Khan doesn't have one more move up his sleeve? I mean, we saw, a trade for Jalen Ramsey late in the summer where, that sent Minka Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins. So who's to say the Steelers don't have another big move up their sleeve? I've learned ever since Omar Khan has taken over as general manager not to put anything past him. He's really aggressive, and I really like that about him. And he's had a couple of decent drafts. He's hit on some players, missed on some. But, the draft is going to be key because, that's the next thing we're going to talk about here. Because, if you look at the Steelers drafts, I want to say from 2018 to now, they've not been great. They've not been great at all. 2018 first rounder Terrell Edmunds did not work out at all, was just mid, just mediocre, nothing more than that. 2019, you traded up for Devin Bush. I was at that draft in Nashville. That obviously didn't work out, even though he's kind of, balling elsewhere, but he didn't become the linebacker that we thought he was and that he was at Michigan. 2020, you don't have a first-round pick because you traded it for Minka Fitzpatrick, but you pick up Chase Claypool in the second round, who kind of worked out his rookie year, but then, as all what happens with Steeler receivers, he had diva-like tendencies, and he was off the team within 3 years. 2 to 3 years, but you picked up Alex Highsmith mid-round that year, so I guess you got something out of that. 2021, you got Najee Harrison, the first round. That was, oh boy, if there's one player that I really wanted to work out for the Steelers, it was him, and I think Prime will tell you the same, but it flopped. It completely flopped, as did that 2021 draft class outside of Pat Freiermuth. 2022, even worse, Kenny Pickett, that was just awful, should not have been a first-round pick. And then you got George Pickens, who was probably the best player out of that class, but he's not with the Steelers anymore, so that draft class was just a total failure. 2023, not bad, when Omar Khan, his first draft, picked up Broderick Jones in the first round. He's kind of had a rocky start to his career, but started out not playing his natural position, started out at right tackle, which I was not a fan of, and then switched over to left tackle. Did not work out either to start out, but he started playing a little better down the stretch this past season, but unfortunately was out for the rest of the year in the week 13-14 mark after suffering a neck injury against the Bears. But you also picked up Joey Porter Jr. in that class, Nick Herbig, Keanu Benton, guys that have made some big plays for the Steelers so far in their careers. Um, 2024, Troy Falatanu, who we first saw this year after missing his rookie year due to injury, he looked promising. Mason McCormick is a starter. Zach Frazier, who you got out of that class as well. So Omar Khan, I think it's safe to say, Prime, ever since taking over as general manager in terms of draft, he's not done a bad job. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I'll say like the moves, he's been way more aggressive than Kevin Colbert ever was. Um, obviously, obviously, like we saw trades like mid season during free agency and all of that. Like, like, like we saw the man trade Chase Claypool for basically a first round pick. It's that second round pick, pick 32 when they had 31 picks that particular year,
Because
and
the
you ended up
Dolphins got
getting.
their pick taken away from them. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And you ended up getting Joey Porter Jr., who has solidified himself as one of the better cornerbacks in the National Football League. Yet he still gets disrespected by peers and all that. Um, and obviously the moves he's made the last several years, acquiring DK Metcalf, even though, like I said, we can all dwell on a season he had last season, but he's still a talented individual. Um, and all that. So and he's managed to keep cap space at a good level the last few years and all that. So he's been really good. He's also drafted a couple of good players as we had mentioned, like George Pickens and all that. But of course, those guys are not in the roster anymore. Um, I feel like there's always much room for improvement. You know, maybe this draft could be his best draft ever. And like especially the later rounds, we have 12 picks to work with. So like, and maybe we can trade up with some picks. Maybe we can pick up some steals in the draft. Every like as we was talking about like Roman Wilson or Caleb Johnson last season, and obviously those two picks haven't panned out well at all. But there's still a lot of work he can do, but he's been very good. And of course, him drafting Derek Harmon last year, Derek Harmon has shown some flashes, even though he missed a couple of games with injury. But he's very young. He has a lot of potential. Um, he can make some good things for the Steelers. But yeah, Omar Khan, um, like I said, very much better than Cobra has been the past decade, 15 years, whatever you want to call it. Um, I see.
And Jack Sawyer, too.
Yes, yeah, Jack Sawyer, he made a good amount of plays last season as well. But yeah, we'll see we will see what will happen. Obviously we have 12 picks right now. If it was Kevin Colbert, we'd probably still be stuck at 6. You know, so let's just see what will happen. We don't know what's gonna happen, if he's gonna trade up, if he's gonna trade down, if he's gonna trade for maybe a depth piece or a solid guy. We just don't know what's gonna happen or what to expect. But from what we've seen from Omar Khan, he's made a good amount of moves. It's not like it's not like how he moves from the Eagles. It's not like he's made a great ton of moves, but he's still one of the best GMs in the league, if you was to ask me. Um, so like he can manage to make moves with less or more of the situation he has, and just been very very good to see. He doesn't have the nickname the con artist for the reason. So
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you're 100% right. Just got to see what happens. So with that being said, what is one position that you want to see the Steelers target with their first or second round picks? What is one position you absolutely want to see them, take care of?
One position.
And also give maybe, not too many, but maybe give one or two guys for that position that you'd like to see them target.
Um, I, I mean, obviously my main, obviously my main would be wide receiver. Like I'm thinking wide receiver at the top of my head, obviously because there's like a lot, and I mean a lot of talent in this draft. There's gonna be some talent in next year's draft as well. But with this draft, you got Jordan Tyson, you got Makai Lemon, obviously Carnell Tate. Those are like the top three guys that are going to be took for wide receivers. You also got Omar Cooper. You also got Zachariah Branch. I feel if you get one of those guys, can elevate your style of play for the offense. Obviously, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Most likely Aaron Rodgers. Um, but I feel like one of those guys you put them into your offense can very much elevate your game. Cause DK Metcalf, K route runner at best. Michael Pittman, not too bad of a route runner. Both guys are good at contested catches and all that. But I feel like you need somebody that could be that game changer. I like Calvin Austin. He had speed, but he wasn't really a game changer. You get one of these guys, they can be a game changer. I was looking at tape at Omar Cooper Jr., Zachariah Branch, and Makai Lemon, of course, since he's USC and won the Biletnikoff Award. You know, but if you wanted to get one of those top guys, that's when they should trade up um, for wide receiver. But hey, if there's somebody falling on the board, if Amar Cooper is still there, if Zachariah Branch is still there, I would be obligated to draft one of them for the wide receiver position.
Yeah, you're 100%. I agree with you, man. I really want to see them target wide receiver. There's a lot of decent receivers in this class that you mentioned. Makai Lemon, I'm a big fan of his game. Omar Cooper, if they want to maybe go with it later, the younger brother of Amari Cooper. Zachariah Branch out of Georgia is also a target, prospect that I like. Carnell Tate's probably my favorite prospect. I really like him a lot. I think his route, running and his, just separation, yards after catch ability, I think, would fit so well in this offense. And, just give another, Steelers another weapon in that arsenal. One position, though, that I kind of want to see them maybe try to target in maybe the later mid rounds is the linebacker position
I
because,
agree.
you know, because Patrick Queen, signed him to a big 3-year deal back in 2024, hasn't really worked out that well. It's been very up and down. He's very good at stopping the run, but the one thing I expected when we signed Patrick Queen was turnovers, and he has not done that at all. He's only gotten one, maybe two notable turnovers. I remember he forced a fumble out of Derrick Henry when we played the Ravens the first time in 2024 when they came to Pittsburgh. But there's just been a lot of times where he's been, playing out of position, not in the right areas. Granted, that could be a coaching issue as well and a scheme issue because Terrell Austin was also not that great. But he's entering the last year of his contract. So you don't even know, regardless of what happens, you don't even know if he's going to, be on the team in 2027. So maybe target, a guy like Jacob Rodriguez. As a Texas Tech fan, I would love that. And they also hired the Texas Tech linebackers coach, CJ Ayu. So maybe that's a possibility. But, you know, maybe Sonny Styles, if they want to really go defense first round, I highly doubt it. But I want to see them at least take a look at the linebacker room. Peyton Wilson's not bad, but a little inconsistent at times. But I think linebacking they should at least look at in the mid rounds.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Jacob Rodriguez will probably be a steal of the draft if he was to get took by the Steelers. And obviously you mentioned very good points, Patrick Queen. But yeah, I feel like Jacob Rodriguez would be probably the biggest steal in the draft if we was to get him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I said, as a Texas Tech fan, I would love that. But we'll see what happens. The draft is a month away. I will be there. I'm very excited about it. And, just please don't draft Ty Simpson round one. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But the Steelers got 12 picks to work with, thanks to the compensatory picks that they were rewarded. They lost Dan Moore a year ago, Najee Harris. Van Jefferson even played a part in that as well somehow. So, that's a big reason why the Steelers have a lot of those picks. And I think, there's no other general manager other than, obviously Howie Roseman, but that would never happen other than Omar Khan that I trust to make the right picks.
Agreed.
But yeah, so any closing remarks that you want to add before we wrap this up?
Not. I mean, not too much. Just gonna be curious to see how the draft's gonna operate. Um, I know there's gonna be more mock drafts releasing on the way because March is almost over. The draft is close to about a month away. Um, so we just gonna see what's gonna happen. Obviously 12 picks to work with. Just very much curious and excited to see how that's gonna work and operate. But other than that, just happy about the moves that we've made so far, and we'll just see what's gonna happen uh, when the draft comes around.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's all we can do. But thank you, Prime, for coming on. Very glad that we were able to do this. We're recording this on March 26th, just in case you guys were wondering. So if anything happens after that, before the video is uploaded, and if we didn't talk about it, that is why. But expect to see Prime on a couple more videos in the near future. We'll definitely be doing this more often, and we'll definitely be doing a mock draft as well. So stay tuned for that because like he said, the end of March is literally here, and it's April, draft season. So we're definitely going to get a mock draft out for you guys, and maybe, hopefully, with another guest in this episode to make this kind of a three-way episode. Really hope that could happen. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and definitely we'll probably get a Penguins video out soon since the playoffs are starting real soon. Hopefully they'll be in there, even though it's kind of been a little bit of a rough stretch, but we'll see what happens. But thank you guys, and thank you, Prime.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man.
Of course.